If Notre Dame is still going to make the college football playoff this season, they have to win tomorrow against Purdue. And at this point, there are far more questions than answers about what Notre Dame's plan is at quarterback. Is it going to be Riley Leonard or could it be Steve Angeli? That's next on Locked On Irish.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome in. This is Locked On Irish, your daily Notre Dame podcast, and I'm your host, Tyler Wojciak. I'm a Notre Dame alum and producer at Fox Sports, and it is great to have you here on Friday the 13th, September 13th, that is. So happy Friday, and thank you for getting a head start on your weekend by making this your first listen of the day. As always, you can watch every episode on YouTube, or you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. Please like and subscribe if you are watching along on YouTube, or rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Okay, let's try and have some fun on this Friday, okay? It's been an awful week. There's no way around it. Everywhere I turn, I'm reminded of the fact that Northern Illinois came into Notre Dame Stadium and beat the Irish on their own turf, and it has not been fun being the laughingstock of college football this past week, but it is just one game, and technically everything Notre Dame hopes to achieve this season is still possible, but they need to get back on track, and it starts tomorrow against Purdue. So today, I'm going to be doing a mailbag. I've got a ton of questions to get to. I really appreciate everyone who sent theirs in. This is more than I've ever had, so I'm going to try and move quickly to get to as many as possible. It's kind of funny. When I was looking through the YouTube comments to find these questions, I saw one guy tell me that these would be a lot more informative if I answered the question in one sentence and then immediately moved on to the next one. That doesn't really provide many opportunities to go in depth or provide counter arguments and really, provide a thoughtful response. So I'm not going to do that. I don't think that sounds very enjoyable to anyone, but I am going to try to move a little bit quicker on these. So let's get into it. First one. At Eric Loeb, who is going to start against Purdue, Riley Leonard or Steve Angeli? It's a simple question, not so simple answer. I think that's pretty safe to say. There were some conflicting reports that came out on Thursday morning regarding the Notre Dame quarterback situation from credible people on the Notre Dame beat. There were some people who said that Steve Angeli got the majority of the reps in practice on Wednesday, but then there were other people who said that Riley Leonard got pretty much all of the first-team reps. He was basically business as usual. And then when Marcus Freeman had his 15-minute press conference on Thursday, he said that the plan has remained the same. Riley Leonard is healthy. He's been taking all the reps. He is going to be the starter at quarterback for Notre Dame. From that standpoint, I believe him. I do think that Riley Leonard is going to start this game. I feel very confident about that, barring a last-second change. Maybe he has some setback in the next 48 hours, but I doubt that. I think Riley Leonard is absolutely going to start the game, and Notre Dame is going to see what they can get out of him. I understand why some fans are frustrated. They want to see Steve Angeli. Some people even want to see Kenny Minchey, but for the Notre Dame coaching staff, they feel that highly of Riley Leonard that if he's healthy, he gives them the best chance to win. We saw that in the second half where Riley Leonard was clearly not healthy, and they still thought they gave themselves the best chance to win if they just let him go out there and gut it out. And despite what the coaching staff has said all week about how he's totally fine, and Mike Denbrock said that at this point he should be able to run as much as he normally would, we know that's not true because they didn't run him at all in the second half, at least not on any designed runs, but they did run him 5 times on that opening drive. Clearly, Riley Leonard in the running game is one of the best things that this offense has going for it right now, and they don't have a ton, right? Like there hasn't been a whole lot of success on that side of the ball. But when Riley Leonard is healthy, he has been able to run, get consistent yardage, and I think that they're hoping he will be able to do that on Saturday. However, if Riley Leonard is hurt and Notre Dame is not able to utilize him in the running game, I have no idea why he would be out there. Is he going to finish the game? I think that's up in the air. We're going to have to see how he looks early on in the game. But this actually leads me to my next question, which comes from 2020 hindsight. Why are we so sure Angeli isn't Tommy Rees? The less athletic quarterback has succeeded before. And I think that's kind of what a lot of people are asking right now. I don't think that there's a large portion of the fan base who thinks that Steve Angeli is going to come in and then take Notre Dame and reach a new ceiling that they didn't think was possible before the year. At this point, it's just a matter of winning a game. Notre Dame absolutely has to beat Purdue. They cannot start the season off 1-2, or else things could go real bad in a hurry. So it's really not about benching Riley Leonard for the rest of the season. It's just like, hey, if Riley Leonard is hurt, which we all think he is, despite everything the coaching staff has said, then why not bring in Steve Angeli? And that's the part that I really don't understand. And yeah, I understand he's a little bit less athletic, as 2020 hindsight pointed out here, but he has played enough to show that he's at least competent out there, right? I understand that when he won the game in the Sun Bowl going up against Oregon State, there was a very depleted defense that he was going up against. And when he came in garbage time, like the stakes were very low in all of those instances. But at least he could throw the ball and complete a pass downfield, which to this point in the season, we have not really seen Riley Leonard do on a consistent basis, especially since he hurt his shoulder. Also, quick just aside on the Steve Angeli, Tommy Rees comparison. Is it just me, or do they look exactly alike? I'm not talking about their style of play. I'm talking physically. When I Steve Angeli's face, I'm like, that looks exactly like Tommy Rees. And Steve Angeli's game is a little bit different than Tommy Rees. He's more mobile than Rees was. But I think that Steve Angeli could thrive in a Tommy Rees-esque role where he comes in relief, perhaps in this game against Purdue. Maybe he has to start against Miami of Ohio. But if the coaching staff believes in Steve Angeli in the way that they say that they do, he should be able to get that done. Steve Angeli should be able to get Notre Dame to a win against Purdue, even though it's on the road, and he should be able to beat Miami of Ohio a week later. Louisville, that's a different story. But hypothetically, if you were to let Riley Leonard sit for a couple weeks, get healthy, maybe he will be in much better condition going up against Louisville, and then you give yourself a better chance to win in that game. So I feel like Notre Dame is dealing with all these different things at quarterback, and people on the outside are all wondering, what are they going to do, right? I think there's a lot of people who are pretty much out on Riley Leonard, and I get it. When you lose to Northern Illinois and you play through the whole game, you're not really going to get a ton of support from the fan base, especially considering he is a one-year rental. The fan base already has some preconceived notions about transfer quarterbacks and the fact that Notre Dame, this is their third time in 4 years doing it. Like, people didn't love the acquisition in the first place. I know I was personally skeptical about Riley Leonard. I didn't hate the decision to go into the portal, but the concerns I had about Riley Leonard when he went into the portal and committed to Notre Dame are now all being exemplified on the field on Saturdays. Like, I think my biggest concern about him at the beginning was his inaccuracy, and that has been his biggest issue so far. I thought he'd be a great asset to the offense with his running ability, and he was against Texas A&M. But as we have discussed all week, the fact that Notre Dame did not run him in the second half shows you that he clearly was hurt, and his health status is completely up in the air, at least to us on the outside. I saw some people say that he might have a torn labrum. I don't think that's true. I think I've also heard some people say that he has a bone bruise. Maybe. Again, I'm not a doctor, but he's clearly dealing with something based on the hit that he took right before the end of the first half, the way that he was babying his shoulder the rest of the game, and just the way that he played. It looked different, and I'm sure that it feels different for Riley Leonard. And Notre Dame is going to have to figure this out in a hurry because they absolutely have to win this game. They have to play the quarterback that puts them in the best position to win. Right now, the coaching staff believes that's Riley Leonard. That's why he's going to start in this game. But depending on how he plays in the first half, if it starts off poorly, I think a lot of people on the outside are going to be like, make the change to Steve Angeli. At least give him a shot to prove that he can't be, that he can do the things that Riley Leonard has not been able to do. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be the thing that everyone is going to be focusing on at the start of this game. Now, if Riley Leonard comes out, he's firing on all cylinders, then that'll quiet down the crowd for a little bit, but we're going to have to wait and see until Saturday because at this point, nobody on the outside knows for certain. But amidst all of this, I have been getting a couple questions that I'm not shocked that I received, but it's very funny and we need to address it. So I got a lot of questions like this, but we're going to use Charlie Wooding, who asked, why not turn to the former five-star Notre Dame has on the bench? Enough of this cycle of endless transfers. Let's go with a talented five-star quarterback who's flashed both his arm and legs in practice and can give this team a boost for the final 10 games. Would love to see Tyler Buchner get his fair shake. What do you say? This is just my own personal read on the question here, but I sense a little bit of sarcasm in the tone. But there were some people who seriously asked me whether or not Tyler Buchner should play for Notre Dame at quarterback this season. And it's funny because I remember when it was announced that Tyler Buchner was going to walk on the football team and play wide receiver, I remember thinking, how bad would things have to get for fans to start asking for Tyler Buchner, for fans to want him to actually take over the role of QB1 for Notre Dame? Turns out all it took was 2 games, which is Not something I ever would have expected, and not really a good thing if you're the Notre Dame offense. And look, I understand that this is a joke, but Tyler Buchner has not practiced the quarterback position since he was a football player at Alabama last year. Since then, he's played a full season of lacrosse for Notre Dame, and then he has basically been trying to learn how to play wide receiver throughout the preseason and throughout the season. Tyler Buchner's best role on this team right now is signaling plays in or being a decoy on the sideline, but he is not ever going to take a snap at quarterback again for Notre Dame unless they're like up by 50 on senior day and the crowd just wants to see him out there. But I really do not think Tyler Buchner is ever going to take a snap on offense at Notre Dame that has any kind of stakes whatsoever, especially not at the quarterback position. And hey, I like Buchner. I love that he came back and wanted to finish the job at Notre Dame, but it ain't happening. All right, coming up, let's try to be a little bit more positive. What is the best case scenario for this season? This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebay.com/motors. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Today's episode is also sponsored by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. Speaking from my own experience, I know that whenever we're looking to make a new hire, we use LinkedIn to help find the perfect new team member, and it's so easy because they do the heavy lifting. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't even actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, our next question comes from Dano Carter. What is more impactful towards a playoff berth, a quality win, or a bad loss? When Notre Dame had been better off losing close to A&M in beating NIU. In the past, like 2021, they were hurt by having no quality wins, but could potentially have 2 big road wins this year, which could say more about a team than a bad loss. So I've gotten a couple iterations of the same question. Some people were like, what would you rather have? Notre Dame have lost to Texas A&M in the season opener and then beaten NIU? Does it really matter? To be honest with you, I really don't think it matters all that much. If there is a significant, or if there is a change, I would say that it's probably pretty marginal. But I do think that a quality win is more important than a bad loss, even a historically bad loss like the one that Notre Dame just had against Northern Illinois. And the fact of the matter is, Notre Dame had to be 2-0, and they're not. So it really doesn't matter all that much. And I'll just be honest with you, it's hard for me to imagine this team going 11-1. I just don't see it right now based on what I saw Notre Dame do against Northern Illinois and the fact that the people on the Northern Illinois team have publicly stated they watched the film and felt like they actually matched up better and that there were some matchups on the field that they were better than with Notre Dame. And I understand that Notre Dame looked good against Texas A&M in multiple different areas, but when you let a MAC school push you around, I think everything is going to be questioned after that. But let's say Notre Dame does go 11-1. Maybe we look back on this past Saturday as just a weird fluke in an otherwise great season. Maybe it's the last hard lesson that Marcus Freeman has to learn as he is still kind of learning on the job as a head coach, and he tries to get some sustained success because Marcus Freeman has shown that he has the ability to get his team ready to play, particularly in big games. Like, it's rare for Notre Dame to come out completely flat in a game that's really big time. Like Texas A&M, they were ready to go. Ohio State last year, they were certainly ready to go in that one. Clemson in 2022, even Ohio State in his first game as a head coach, like his team was ready to play against a team that was far more talented than them. So that has never really been the issue. The issue has been managing success, and the fact that Notre Dame is still struggling with this in year 3 is incredibly frustrating. But I'm kind of getting away from the question here. I do understand the point, and I think, if Notre Dame does end up running the table here, if USC ends up becoming the team that I think they can be, I think that they're a team capable of competing for the Big Ten. Now, I don't want people to get too high on them just yet, because they do have a difficult schedule. They did have a really nice win against LSU, but we're going to see, Notre Dame really needs USC to be in it at the very end of the year. And I know that's probably not fun to be cheering for USC, but if they just fall off and they end up going into that Notre Dame game with 4 losses, let's say, or even 3 losses, that win is just not going to be as important. That game for Notre Dame really needs to have the feel and have the stakes of a play-in game for the college football playoff for people to start to forget this loss, because I've just got news for you. This Northern Illinois thing ain't going away anytime soon. We're going to hear about this probably for the rest of our lives, as much as that sucks to say. But I do think that the opportunity for Notre Dame is still there. If they were to win out, they could point to the fact that they beat Texas A&M, an SEC team, on the road in the season opener. They could come up with all the excuses in the world as to why they lost to Northern Illinois. But they also need Louisville to be good. That's another big one, considering the fact that Florida State is pretty much out of it. But they need a lot to happen, and I just honestly don't see that big of a difference between losing to Texas A&M and losing to NIU, because if they lost to Texas A&M, they're going to be dealing with discussions at the end of the season like, you lost to what could be a mediocre SEC team in the season opener, and there's going to be other SEC teams who are going to be fighting for that spot. So there's going to be arguments to pick apart no matter what happens, and any difference here is pretty marginal. All right, next one, CS Genis. Realistic best-case scenario is losing one more game and playing in a meaningless bowl. What should we realistically hope/cheer for the rest of the season? I hear you, CS Genis. It's not really a fun time, but you have to hope to win every single game while you're still alive. And Notre Dame is still alive. They really, really need to win on Saturday against Purdue. I'm expecting it to be an ugly game. I don't think it's going to be a very joyful one. I think I plan on avoiding my phone at all costs, at least through the first half, because I think there's a chance it gets real toxic on these internet streets, especially if Notre Dame's offense comes out sluggish. But, I think saying the best case scenario is just losing one more game. I understand why you feel that way. I don't think Notre Dame is going to run the table, but the opportunity is still there. So to just give up entirely on this season feels like a waste of time. And look, this hasn't been a whole lot of fun, but if you're listening to the show, odds are you love college football. And college football has the shortest season and the longest offseason of any sport. We just waited 8 months for the season to start. And I know that everything feels lost after week 2, but there is a way that this team could bounce back. And we have to hope and cheer for them to do exactly that. Because as I've said, I said in the show on Monday, there was so much pressure on this team to win because, one, it's Marcus Freeman's 3rd year. They have so much talent on the roster. But a big reason why is because there is such a financial investment into this team, not just in Marcus Freeman, but in both the coordinators. They're both getting paid over $2 million a year. Notre Dame is willing to spend more money on their staff and the team. They just broke the ground on a new state-of-the-art football facility. There is a significant buy-in from the university that we have not seen in a long time towards the football program. Not only that, you have a bunch of people who have donated a lot of money to Notre Dame's different NIL collectives, and they want to see a return on their investment. So if this season starts to go south and everything just basically collapse, then I think the people who are spending their money are not going to be as willing in the future. And it's hard to blame them, because if you spend a bunch of money and the team goes 7-5 or 8-4, why would that person want to keep spending their hard-earned money on a team if it's not going to lead to success? So I think that's why there's so much pressure on this team to prevent that from happening. And even if they go 10-2, it's not great. I'll get into a question here. That just leads me to the next question. I'll tie them both together. At Stavu Schlotsky, what is the future of this program if Freeman goes 9-3 or 8-4? Also 14 points at home versus NIU. What will Denbrock do differently against Purdue to regain confidence? I'll get to the second part of that question in a little bit, but let's focus on what is the future of this program if Freeman goes 9-3 or 8-4. So you have to hope, obviously, that Notre Dame is competitive for the playoff. If they go 10-2, they will at least have a shot at the college football playoff. Personally, I don't think 10-2 is good enough to get in with this schedule with a loss to Northern Illinois. But you really have to hope that they're at least in the discussion at the end of the year, because if they do go 9-3 or they do go 8-4, then it brings on all sorts of questions about the future. And to answer Stavu, It's not good. Freeman's future is not great if they go 8-4. I think there's going to be some serious conversations about, is he the right guy for this team? Is it a fireable offense? I'm not willing to say that right now, but to be honest with you, I think 9-3 would be the true worst case scenario for this season, in my opinion, because 9-3 would be the same exact result as last year. So technically, it wouldn't be worse, but it would feel worse because this team is more talented and their schedule is easier, and it would feel like they're just kind of stuck in neutral. But 9-3 is not enough that you're going to make sweeping changes or anything. It just kind of means you're stuck there, and the ceiling doesn't look nearly as high as you thought it could be. Whereas like 8-4, I think it would be so bad that there'd be alarm bells ringing off all around the program that, hey, something big needs to be changed in a hurry. That might lead to the change that would then lead to more success. Hopefully, that's what you have to hope for. But it's a really uncomfortable spot for Freeman to be in, and really the entire football program if they do end up going 8-4 when you consider the expectations and the pressure going into this season. So we as a collective fan base have to hope and pray that that does not happen, and we're going to cheer for Notre Dame every single game. And if things start going south, then you got to make some questions about, or answer some questions about, like, Ryan Leonard, should he be starting if he's not going to be with the team in the future? Or should you go with a young quarterback? Like, I would go with the young quarterback in that situation. But yeah, man, a lot is riding on this game against Purdue, because I think that could be sort of a launching point to this team getting back on track, or it could just be the beginning of a really long, terrible season if Notre Dame falls to Purdue and they start off 1-2 on the season. But to answer the second part of the question real quickly, 14 points at home versus NIU, what will Denbrock do differently? Just give the ball to your best players. I mean, I know so much of it depends on the quarterback play, but you can help out the quarterback a lot by giving the ball to Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, Bo Collins, Mitchell Evans. Just give them the ball. I don't care who the quarterback is at that point if they're struggling. Find a way to give the ball to your best players in space, and I think that will lead to more success on the offensive side of the ball. Okay, we got a few more questions left, including, are Notre Dame's problems on offense a systemic issue, or are they fixable? That's next on Locked On Irish. Today's episode is also brought to you by Factor. Warmer, sunnier days are calling. Fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. Crush your wellness goals this month with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. Make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert. Stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. And treat yourself to restaurant-quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. Keep kitchen time to a minimum. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes. No shopping, prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. All right, our next question comes from @Micah Towery. Does Notre Dame have a systemic problem building dynamic offenses? Is there a conservatism in the program that runs across multiple coaches and coordinators? So no, I do not believe it's systemic, but I understand the question. Notre Dame has not really had a high-powered offense since 2015, which is a really long time. And Notre Dame has had good offenses since then. They've had serviceable offenses, but not one that was truly high-powered in the sense that that 2015 offense was, because they could throw deep to Will Fuller. They could also throw underneath to him. In the screen game, he was very dynamic. They had good running backs with C.J. Prosise. Josh Adams is a true freshman. They had a really good offensive line, and Deshaun Kaiser was really good that year, both as a passer and as a runner. That offense is a lot of fun to watch. The last few Notre Dame offenses have not been that fun. But no, I don't believe it's systemic, and I really just think it comes down to two things. One, they've missed on the evaluation of too many quarterbacks, and two, they have not been able to recruit the skilled players necessary to generate a high-powered offense. Let's talk about the quarterbacks. You need great ones in college football if you want to have a good offense. That is the starting point, and Notre Dame has had good QBs like Ian Book. Quick side, if you saw my tweet from the Locked On Irish account where I posted a meme and it was like, I wish that when you were in the good times, you knew that you were in them. And then on the right, I put a picture of Ian Book, and I knew it would generate quite a strong reaction from the fan base, because I know that there are certainly differing opinions about Ian Book. I loved him. I thought he was a very good college quarterback. Was he truly elite? Was he good enough for Notre Dame to win a national championship? Obviously not. But my point of that was, when he was the quarterback at Notre Dame, he was not nearly appreciated enough. And ever since then, Notre Dame has not had a quarterback as good as him. And that's just the reality. And I just think it's kind of funny how much Notre Dame fans complained about him when he was the quarterback. And now, if Ian Book was the quarterback, Notre Dame would absolutely be 2-0. Anyway, that's an aside. Let's get back to the question. Notre Dame missed on Brandon Wimbush, Tyler Buchner, and Phil Jurkovec as recruits. Every single one of those guys was at one point billed the savior. They were really highly touted. Wimbush was a top 50 player nationally. Buchner was top 50 at one point, but then he fell because he missed his entire senior season due to COVID and the fact that California did not have high school football his senior year. Phil Jurkovec was like a fringe top 100 guy, but every single one of these guys had a ton of hype around them coming out of high school, and they looked, and it felt like they were going to be the quarterback, one of them, to lead Notre Dame back to the promised land. All three of those guys did not work out at all. They added Hartman in the transfer portal. He, at one point, was going to be the savior. I thought he was good. He was not good enough in the big games, and clearly wasn't good enough for Notre Dame to achieve the goals that they had hoped to last season. Riley Leonard looks like it's the exact same situation, arguably worse than Sam Hartman. Jack Cohn, honestly, better than I expected. Just not the right quarterback for that offense. They just had a really bad offensive line, and he was not mobile at all. If you gave him like a really good offensive line, he showed you that he could pick apart defenses. He was pretty accurate with the football, a great leader, a great teammate, all that stuff. So he actually exceeded expectations, but obviously Jack Cohn was not good enough to win a playoff game or anything like that. Then you look at the skill positions. Notre Dame has not recruited well enough at wide receiver. That has been talked about at length on this podcast and pretty much every single other Notre Dame football show. They've missed a lot. Part of that is on Del Alexander and his just complete reluctance to recruit guys to Notre Dame. And then in the time since then, they've added some guys like Jane Greathouse. They got a couple good players in this most recent class, in Cam Williams, Micah Gilbert, but they have not been able to get guys year in and year out, and they've missed on a lot of those guys as well. Running back, they've recruited pretty well at. There's really not as much to do with that, but specifically the wide receivers. So it's honestly a talent issue more than anything. They've missed on a lot of quarterbacks. They've missed on the skilled players, and Notre Dame has been able to recruit a lot of offensive linemen and a lot of tight ends. So they get better players at those positions, and then they're forced to build their offense around them. So I think it's just a product of the players that they've got as recruits and as transfers, and that is what led to pretty boring offenses over the past few years. The hope was when Marcus Freeman got hired, that Notre Dame would sign a lot more dynamic, skilled players. I think they're trending in the right direction, but we have not seen enough of it on Saturdays. Okay, next one. Andrew Luna, 8482. Why do you think that no other program has to deal with these types of issues like Notre Dame has for the past decade, even longer? And he goes on about how he's been a Notre Dame fan and really has not been able to see that much success. Look, I get it, Andrew, but let's be real here for a second. As much as it sucks sometimes being a Notre Dame fan and we come up short a lot and all that stuff, Notre Dame has had it a lot better than the vast majority of other college football programs. And I know we don't want to hear that right now because Notre Dame has kind of been on the cusp of achieving greatness for a long time. They just have not been able to get over that hump. But we are just paying so much attention to Notre Dame that we think that it's the worst compared to everyone else, when that's just not reality. Look at Texas. They were down for a long time. It became a meme, like Texas is back every single year, and then they would be really bad. Okay, at least Notre Dame has been, for the most part, consistently good for the past decade plus. And then you've got teams like Michigan, who literally just won a national championship. They almost fired Jim Harbaugh 2 years ago. They could not beat Ohio State. They would get dominated in those games. They were losing to their rivals. Nothing was working at Michigan for years. And then finally, they got a 3-year stretch that culminated in a national championship. And then you got Clemson, who was at the top of the sport. They were the team in college football, along with Alabama, for a good 5-year run. Now they look like an average program. The vast majority of college football teams experience peaks and valleys. Alabama didn't under Nick Saban because he's literally the greatest college football coach of all time. Ohio State has had sustained excellence for decades now, but they only have 2 national championships since the 1970s. So these programs deal with it, and I understand that it's been a really long time since Notre Dame won a national championship or won a particularly meaningful bowl game, but they have been in it. They went to the college football playoff twice in the 4-team format. Most schools can't say that. So I know that right now is not a really great time to say you actually don't have it that bad, because this past week has been really bad as a Notre Dame fan. But when you look across all of college football, you try to, provide yourself with some perspective here. It's really not as bad as you think. Every fan base outside of a couple think that they're tortured. And even the couple that I'm referring to, even like Alabama fans, they think they got it rough. They don't. Okay. And they annoy me more than anyone, because they complain, and it's like, hey, you've got nothing to complain about. You have 6 national championships or whatever the number is. So look, I sympathize, but it's really not that bad. And I'm hopeful that it's going to get better. Okay. Last one, maybe my favorite one ever. At Burger_Capital, who from the 1988 Permian Mojo team would you add to this team to right the ship? If you have not seen the Friday Night Lights movie, what are you doing? Honestly, what are you doing? Because to me, that's not only the greatest football movie ever made, that is the greatest sports movie ever made. And if you watch the television show, it's not nearly as good as the movie. That is my take. I stand on that. And now, as for the question, because he's asking which player from that team in the movie would you add to this Notre Dame team to right the ship? It's actually pretty easy. Ivory Christian. Preacher man. Notre Dame needs a strong side end, especially now that Josh Burnham is hurt and RJ Oben has been a bit of a disappointment since he joined the team. Preacher man would be absolutely perfect. Also, this team kind of feels like they need someone to light a fire up their ass, kind of like Preacher man did at halftime of the state championship, which to this day gives me chills when I watch that scene. Sometimes I'll just watch that scene because I need a little pick-me-up. It gets me so amped. And I honestly think that if Ivory Christian was on the Notre Dame team and he gave a similar speech at halftime, Notre Dame would have beaten Northern Illinois. Mike Winchell, I don't know if he's really that much better than any of the quarterbacks Notre Dame has. Booba Biles is a great running back, but Notre Dame is set at the running back position. Don Billingsley, party at Taylor's house, now Billingsley. I love him. Maybe he could provide a spark to this team, but I don't really think he'd be that beneficial on the field on Saturday. So I'm taking Ivory Christian. I love that you asked this question. I'm guessing that you knew that I liked the movie because it's like my Twitter header, but I love it and I appreciate it. And that is going to do it for me today. Thanks again for making Locked On Irish your first listen of the day. All right, here's the plan. Right now, I plan on putting out a quick instant reaction episode tomorrow after the game. Hopefully, I'm in much better spirits than I was last week when I posted one after the loss to Northern Illinois, but be on the lookout for that. Probably only going to be about 10 minutes, quick thoughts, takeaways. But I realized that with this team, maybe we just need like a mini therapy session after each game, and that's what I'm hoping to provide if need be. Or we can celebrate, or we can just breathe a huge sigh of relief depending on how this game goes. But the best way to stay up to date with everything we're doing over here on the podcast is to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you're listening to the pod. For your second listen, check out Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin. Enjoy the game tomorrow. I know it's been a long week. Football is almost here. I hope the Irish get over the hump here and they get back on track, because I think we all just need something right after a week like this. So enjoy the game. Go Irish.